yourselves, my children. No!
Dungeons & Dragons 1983 TV series explored. Dungeons & Dragons is so legendary that it needs no introduction. But the fun 80s cartoon that simplified the basic theme is also worth appreciating. The show was co-produced by TSR and Marvel Productions and animated by Japanese Toei Animation. The series follows 6 kids as they embark on magical quests while guided by the enigmatic Dungeon Master in the realm of Dungeons & Dragons. In this video, we'll explore the entire lore of this iconic series and take you through a nostalgic recap of a show that made the franchise accessible for the young ones as well. Do stay tuned to our channel for more of this cartoon utopia.
Stay away from me, dragon!
Season 1, The Night of No Tomorrow. The episode starts with 6 friends from ages 8 to 15 getting up on the Dungeons & Dragons roller coaster ride in an amusement park when they get magically transported to the realm of Dungeons & Dragons. They meet the Yoda-like Dungeon Master, who grants them different weapons and titles. So, Hank is the Ranger, Eric is the Cavalier, Diana is the Acrobat, Presto is the Magician, Sheila is the Thief, and her brother Bobby is a Barbarian. They're also accompanied by a little unicorn called Uni, who becomes Bobby's pet. The Dungeon Master talks in riddles and guides the children in finding their way home. This part is also the opening sequence of the series before the actual story begins. The heroes climb up a hill and find that their voices are echoing. Bobby and Uni yell loudly, waking up the 5-headed dragon, Tiamat. Bobby impulsively tries to fight the dragon, but Hank protects him. Sheila uses her invisibility cloak to lure the dragon into a cave, while Bobby uses his club to block the cave door with a boulder. The Dungeon Master appears and tells them to head north to the village of Helix, where a celebration is happening, and they might find something helpful to return home. Dungeon Master also informs that Helix was once ruled by flying dragons who were driven away by good magic, and on their way, they must only fear the evil wizard Venger, who could be identified by his white hair. When the group feels hungry, Presto tries to conjure a burger, but only conjures a cow. They finally find a place that points towards Merlin's castle, which they notice is on the clouds. A golden ladder descends from the clouds, enabling them to climb. Diana uses her javelin to jump across the sky moat and open the drawbridge for the others. Once inside the castle, they meet Merlin and his white rabbit, or is it a hare? We're sure you get the drift. Diana and Sheila notice that Merlin has white hair, but Merlin shows that it's only a wig attached to his wizard's hat, as growing hair is the only magic that escapes him. Merlin tells the children how Venger had wanted to conquer Helix, but he used good magic to vanquish them. Suddenly, Tiamat appears. While Hank distracts it, the others flee into another room. They find a door to the dungeon, and Diana lures Tiamat into it, locking her in. Merlin thanks the heroes for saving his life. He proclaims to be 70 and requires an apprentice, so he chooses Presto and asks him to stay there for a lifetime. With Presto staying back, the others dejectedly travel to Helix. Merlin instructs Presto to stir a potion and leave, which allows Presto to go through the spellbook and find a way back home. However, Presto's magic releases the dragons, who return to attack Helix. These dragons are actually wyverns, as they have only 1 pair of legs and a stinger at the end of the tail, while actual D&D dragons have 2 pairs of legs and no tail stinger. When Presto approaches Merlin for help, he reveals himself as Venger, who had changed the spell to take Presto's help. Venger further seeks to use Presto's magical hat to terrorize the realm. In Helix, the heroes take part in the celebrations when a fortune teller notices that the dragons are coming back. The village mayor tells them that it's been 100 years since Merlin died, which makes Hank, Sheila, and Diana realize that the Merlin in the castle is Venger. They get horses from the village and travel back to the castle. Hank asks the guilt-stricken Presto to redo Merlin's spell while the others distract Venger. The heroes release Tiamat, which scares away Venger, while Presto is finally able to use the right spell that makes the dragons vanish once again. However, Presto is still disappointed that he lost his hat, but the Dungeon Master reappears and gives him back the hat before vanishing again. As the heroes hit the road on horses, Presto conjures the cow for Eric.
Get close to me, Timothy.
He's using my dopey shield to fight Venger?
The Eye of the Beholder. The heat of the desert drains the heroes as Eric rants about his usual Richie rich lifestyle. A giant scorpion soon attacks the group and they run into a small cave. A cowardly knight watches them and hides in another cave, only to be again chased by a blue dragon emerging from the cave. While the children hide, the knight is surrounded by the dragon and the scorpion. Thankfully, the dragon chases after the scorpion and leaves. The children leave the cave and assume the knight has protected them. The knight introduces himself as Sir John and leaves, after which the dungeon master appears and informs them about the Valley of the Beholder in the east. He explains that a monster called Beholder guards the way that can take the heroes back to their world. The dungeon master also points out that they need beauty to ward off the eye of the Beholder, and for that, they must look backward. The sound effect used in this portion is the same one used by the space beacon in Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home. The children deduce that looking backward means looking in the past, and they decide to take the help of Sir John. Meanwhile, the villagers want to remove Sir John from his position for his cowardly behavior and ask him to leave, but Sir John's son pleads with the mayor to give Sir John a last chance to prove his mettle. The heroes travel through a mysterious path with gigantic mushrooms when a pack of giant snails attacks them. Although Presto and Hank try to use light to scare away the snails, they still fail and get abducted by the snails. Uni escapes from the snails and finds Sir John. She snatches Sir John's torch to lure him to the snails. As Sir John waves the torch, it drives the snails away and the heroes emerge from the bags. Thinking that Sir John saved them, Diana presents him with a flower and kisses him, while Hank asks him to help them fight the Beholder. As Presto conjures a dopey shield for Sir John, he reluctantly agrees, and on their way he asks the heroes to devise a plan as he goes to ruminate over things. Venger appears to Sir John and tells him that he's kidnapped Sir John's kid and will only release him if Sir John lures the children to the Beholder. Eric starts doubting Sir John and is proven right when Sir John leaves them before entering the valley. The series co-developer Marc Evanier disliked Eric's character as it was made into obnoxious comic relief due to executive meddling. However, Eric still said the right things and his annoying habits were reduced in the later seasons. Once in the valley, the Beholder starts shooting lasers from its many eyes, while Sir John feels exceptionally guilty for leaving the children in such a dangerous place. Venger returns Sir John's son Timothy to him when they hear the children's screams. Timothy rushes to save them, and Sir John follows. Beholder has tied the heroes with electric wire-like tentacles. Finally, Sir John comes to help them and redeem himself. Diana decodes the clue and asks Sir John to show the flower to Beholder, which works as the sight of beauty makes Beholder scurry underground. The portal opens up and the heroes rush to it. However, Bobby is unwilling to leave Uni behind, especially since Venger has come back on a dark stallion and tries to punish Sir John and Timothy for defying him. Sir John tries to protect himself with Presto's shield, but the heroes, including Eric, also come back to save him. Something further shoots purple goo at Venger, making him fly away. The valley gets restored, and so does Sir John, as a brave knight. The episode ends once again with Eric sitting on a horn that Presto conjured, becoming the butt of the joke.
Within this hall, Venger, our powers are supreme.
The Hall of Bones. When the heroes are chased by a group of scary bat-like creatures, they find their magical items are not working properly. The children escape from the creatures but worry when the dungeon master approaches them and examines the weapons. He tells the children to go to a cemetery called the Hall of Bones to recharge the weapons and find help or guidance. It also appears that Venger is the one who sent the bat-like creatures and has a new shadow demon as a servant. The heroes reach a village and Eric tries stand-up comedy to earn money. While Eric fails miserably, Presto's magic gone wrong act helps them earn some coins to hire a guide. Eric confidently enters an inn to find a guide, but once again, things turn messy when the customers attack Eric. The other heroes use a big sack of bottle openers to distract the customers as they escape with Eric. As they run, the children see a woman with a torch beckoning them. Following the dungeon master's instruction to follow the light, they follow the woman into the cave. However, the woman turns out to be Lolth, the demon queen of spiders. Lolth is working with Venger, who brings the bat-like creatures that take away the heroes' weapons and throw them into a giant spider web. After Venger leaves, Lolth tries to eat the children, but thanks to Uni's horn, the children get free and throw Lolth into a bottomless pit. Did you know the production company actually referred to the role-playing's official sourcebooks for the inspiration for these monsters? While Tiamat, the Orcs, Bullywugs, and others are inspired by the RPG monsters, Lolth is actually a part of the game that's been used in this story. As they exit the cave and into the open cliff, the heroes witness an ongoing battle between Tiamat and Venger. Venger tries to use the heroes' weapons on Tiamat, but as their power fizzles, he drops them and flees, with Tiamat following him. The heroes take up their weapons and decide to visit the Hall of Bones, while the Shadow Demon spies on them and reports it to Venger. During their journey, the heroes encounter Hector the Halfling, who calls himself a guide and agrees to take the children to the Hall of Bones. Sounds fishy, doesn't it? The group reaches a Grand Canyon-like area with rocky mountains and eventually the Hall of Bones, where many heroes were laid to rest. The group enters the creepy-looking Hall of Bones and finds a glowing skull that holds the souls of the warriors. They place the bones inside the skull's mouth to recharge them. Once that's done, the halfling reveals himself as Venger and demands the weapons as payments. As Venger attacks them, the heroes follow the light and get inside the skull head. While the souls of the heroes appear to fight Venger, the skull teleports the heroes outside the Hall of Bones. The narrow bridge starts crumbling, and the children somehow return to safety. They watch the Hall of Bones get destroyed as Venger appears victorious, and the souls leave for heaven. The question that remains is how the children will ever make it back home. Well, in case you want to know, it happens not just once, but twice when the children go through a portal and end up in the amusement park from where they started. But what happens after that? Can they return home to their parents, or does greater disaster await them? What happens when a girl from Earth sees a future with Bobby back in school? Why did Hank betray his friends? Stay with us as we explore what happens to our heroes as they spend more days in this realm.
The horns are mine! The power is mine!
Valley of the Unicorns. Somewhere in the magical realm, a unicorn gets cornered by a pack of wolves, while a sinister wizard riding on a direwolf orders the unicorn to be captured. Uni hears the screams of the adult unicorn and runs toward it, with the children closely following. The wizard hides as the heroes arrive and save the unicorn. However, the evil wizard kidnaps Uni and orders his direwolves to retreat so that he can follow the heroes. The unicorn uses its horn to teleport and escape, which Uni tries to copy, but she's too young for it. The evil wizard tells her it can only be done once a day. The heroes try to make their way through the thorny path to find Uni when the dungeon master appears and informs them that the adult unicorn is Silvermane, the leader of the last herd of unicorns, while the evil wizard is Kelek. He reminds the group that the fate of one unicorn is shared by all, and although Eric tries to note it all down, he forgets the words mid-sentence. The group takes the help of Eric's shield to push away the thorn and sneak up on Kelek. Kelek watches them and uses magic to lift a grotesque castle from beneath the ground. The children try to stop Kelek from hurting Uni. Kelek freezes them and removes Uni's horn, making her weak and grey. Kelek is a unicorn horn collector who wants to achieve the power of teleportation. He comments that he needs only 3 more horns and must find the lost valley of unicorns. Seeing Uni in pain, Bobby finally breaks free, and the others do the same. They find more hornless unicorns in a cage. The heroes free the unicorns, who lead them to the valley, and Kelek follows secretly. It's rather cunning how Kelek uses the heroes to find the valley. The unicorns stop before a waterfall with different coloured water falling from a cliff. It goes well with the unicorns and their rainbow theme. As the waterfall parts, the unicorns enter a secret passage to finally arrive at the valley. Uni finds Silvermane and 2 others, but as she rushes to them, they get surrounded by Kelek and his direwolves. Kelek abducts the last 3 unicorns and takes them back to the castle. Kelek also drops rocks on the heroes, but Eric saves everyone with his shield. Dungeon Master reappears and informs that even enemies often become allies, which gives Presto the idea to bring Venger to the scene. However, Presto gets teleported to Venger's castle instead, but his strategy works. Back in Kelek's castle, the old evil wizard uses a medallion and takes away the horns of the unicorns. But just as he's about to take Silvermane's horn, he gets distracted by a sound. Eric makes the sound, blowing into his boots, while Sheila uses her invisibility hood to release Silvermane. Kelek realizes the ruse and calls his wolves to attack, but Presto and Venger appear, transforming the wolves into cute little puppies. Venger and Kelek embroil in a battle, which breaks the statue holding all the unicorn horns. It's humorously clever writing when Presto tries to restore them magically but mistakenly conjures musical horns. However, Eric remembers what the Dungeon Master said and reminds Presto that he must only restore 1 horn. So, as Uni's horn gets restored, the other unicorns get their horn back. Diana calling Eric Mr. Mouth is a reference to voice actor Don Most's other role as Ralph Malph in Happy Days, 1974. The conflict between Venger and Kelek ends with Venger vanquishing Kelek, who goes down underground along with his castle. When Venger aims for the unicorns, the children ride on the unicorns' backs and they teleport them out of there. Later, Uni plays around with the other unicorns, and Bobby is sad to leave him behind. However, once they leave the waterfall, Uni comes back and joins Bobby, while the direwolf puppies hang on to Eric as they're attracted to his boot.
I've got a jewel for the crown of your master.
Is he?
In search of the Dungeon Master, the heroes travel through a forest as the Dungeon Master has asked to find the forest with no trees. This is practically impossible, and Diana deduces that the Dungeon Master has probably spoken about no trees or trees that know it all. Soon enough, the heroes come across a talking tree that knows everything that is to know in this realm and from the heroes' homeworld. Meanwhile, Dungeon Master travels on a snail when he gets attacked by bullywugs and a bounty hunter who kidnaps him. The heroes also get attacked by bullywugs, and while everyone uses different methods to fight them, we're fascinated by Presto, releasing bugs from his hat to distract the frog soldiers. A fairy traveling with the Dungeon Master reports the incident to the children. However, only Sheila could understand the fairy language, which is fairly ridiculous since the fairy said everything in English, but added some gibberish. Elsewhere, the bounty hunter calls the shadow demon as he wants to sell the Dungeon Master to Venger. The heroes find it difficult to travel on the narrow mountain roads, and once again, Presto's magic goes wrong. Yet they get rescued by lions with wings, who take them to the place where Dungeon Master is being held. Eric leaves to find his way home, while the rest of the group soon encounters orcs. Sheila uses her invisibility cloak, so everyone except Sheila gets captured and is pushed into working in slave mines. Meanwhile, Eric roams alone in a marshland and gets chased by a zombie. The shadow demon also brings news to Venger, who recognizes the bounty hunter as War Duke and gets upset at the thought of paying him. Despite the series covering so many D&D characters, it was initially not compatible with tabletop games, although there were a few board games based on the animated series. Later, a DVD box set included the Dungeons & Dragons 3rd edition animated series handbook, designed to be compatible with the tabletop game. Back in the mines, the heroes befriend a dwarf who tells them that Dungeon Master is just behind the walls and can help the heroes if they help his people get free. Sheila sets Uni free from the cage, and as Uni distracts the orcs, Sheila steals the weapons and takes them back to her friends. The heroes break the wall, find Dungeon Master being frozen inside a block of ice. As the heroes try to rescue him, Venger and the War Duke arrive, and Venger draws the life force of the Dungeon Master. Outside, Eric also gets chased by a giant turtle and falls into the ditch, ultimately landing on the War Duke. The heroes fight the bullywugs and War Duke as his sword flies away and breaks the ice. Dungeon Master turns Venger's dark magic into good magic, temporarily diminishing Venger's power as they all escape. The children also help the dwarves to escape, and when the Dungeon Master makes a volcano erupt, they realize that the Dungeon Master willfully got abducted. Beauty and the Bog Beast. The story begins with the heroes waiting to attack an invisible pair of feet, walking on lava, but it turns out to be the Dungeon Master. DM tells the children about a river running upside down once a year for 60 seconds that can take them home. However, he also asks them not to touch the beauty that the beast breathes. The heroes go in the direction pointed out by the Dungeon Master, but when the road gets divided into two, they separate into two groups. Hank, Sheila, Bobby, and Uni find their path blocked by a giant metal statue that comes alive. The iron golem tries to crush Bobby and Uni, but Hank uses his arrows to save them. As Sheila distracts the golem, Hank melds its feet, causing it to fall and get destroyed. Interestingly, during the original run, the show was considered quite violent for children's cartoons, and a lot of it was due to the 80s satanic panic. However, even preschool-level animations have more violence today than this series. On the other hand, Eric, Diana, and Presto come across a wildflower, and when Eric smells it, he turns into a bog beast. Diana and Presto laugh at Eric, who panics when he realizes he's transformed into an ugly creature. Presto's magic fails to turn Eric back to normal, and he also starts to speak like a frog when turned into the Bog Beast. The Dungeon Master appears and instructs them that the spell will break when Eric finds something more disgusting. Meanwhile, Hank, Sheila, Bobby, and Uni travel through a desert and see a mirage. Hank's bow starts acting weirdly, and as he aims it at the sun and shoots, a large ball of fire falls on the ground. The sinkhole takes the children down as they enter another underground land with little water. They get surrounded by several bog beasts with fish nets, but the bog beasts get scared by the barbarian's scream. As Hank speaks to them, the bog beasts inform them about the evil ogre Cowamung, who takes all their fish and makes the bog beasts go hungry. Elsewhere, the other group also gets chased by a serpent-like creature and gets pulled underwater. The Bog Beasts tell Hank's gang about a prophecy about their leader falling from the sky and helping them defeat Cowamung. Right on cue, Eric and his group fall from the sky, and the Bog Beasts hail Eric as their savior. Sheila, Hank, and Bobby are shocked to see Eric as the Bog Beast, but there is some good news. The dried river in the underground Bog Beast village is the upside-down river they were looking for. The Bog Beasts tell Eric that Cowamung's medallion is the source of his powers. As the heroes sneak in, they find that Cowamung is using dwarves as slaves to run a dam and drive the Bog Beasts away. The Bog Beasts are pretty cowardly, which is hilarious to watch, but spells a challenge for the heroes. As Cowamung freezes half the Bog Beasts, others shake in terror and refuse to fight. Hank and Sheila snatch the medallion, but it's only a fake, as the real one still adorns Cowamung's neck. Cowamung also gets hold of Sheila, who's trying to steal the real medallion while in cloaking mode. Presto tries to conjure up something of use, but summons a frisbee and throws it away. However, the frisbee gets stuck into the gears and the dam breaks. As the river starts flowing upwards, it's the cue for the children to leave, but Cowamung still has Sheila, Bobby, and Uni on hold. Hank covers Diana as she finally rips the medallion from Cowamung, who shrinks and transforms into a Bog Beast himself. The dwarves chase after Cowamung while the heroes get on a piece of log and into the stream. They finally emerge in a river in their home world, and it's only one of 2 instances in which the children make it back temporarily. Despite their efforts, Eric is still a Bog Beast, and the medallion doesn't work in this world. He still wears it and goes back the same way, where he gets accepted as a brother by the Bog Beasts. Eric is discouraged by the turnout, but the others also make it back as they wouldn't leave him alone. As Eric changes back to human, the Dungeon Master appears and explains that the thing Eric hates most is this realm.
It's getting bigger! This is terrible!
Prison without walls. The heroes are back on their journey across the realm of Dungeons and Dragons, but they have no way home when the Dungeon Master appears with his latest mission to restore the heart of a dragon that can lead the children home. As the heroes travel, they fall from a cliff into what looks like a valley with mystical gems. They find a gnome village guarded by giant statues and a stone dragon in the center. Orcs have turned the innocent gnomes into miners for gems, and when a gnome falls, the heroes rally to save him. But even after the orcs are defeated, the gnome refuses to go with them, as a spell ensures that whoever tries to leave will die. The gnome laborer informs that a spellbinder called Lucion can break the spell by replacing the heart of the dragon statue. However, Lucion is currently imprisoned in the Swamp of Sorrow by Venger. The gnome goes back to Venger and reports everything. Venger doesn't punish the gnome, but sends the weak and exhausted gnome back to work. Venger sends the shadow demon to spy on our heroes as they travel to the swamp so that he can collect the secrets if Lucion shares any information on the dragon. The other option is, of course, to get the children's weapons, should they fail. On their way, the heroes get attacked by mushrooms with tentacles, and a giant swamp monster rescues them. However, the children get scared and hurt the swamp monster, which goes away. Once again, the Dungeon Master appears to them and tells them about the prison without walls that has Lucion. The heroes find a dilapidated house filled with muck and algae. But that's not all, as zombies appear from every portion of the house and attack our heroes. These zombies look like they're straight out of Game of Thrones. But of course, D&D came first. Once again, the muck monster comes to save the heroes. It is, of course, Lucion, and the design for this animated mass of swamp plants is based on the Swamp Thing and Man-Thing. You can also call it a Man-Thing cameo, which is a Marvel comic character created by this episode's writer, Steve Gerber. Hank recollects the Dungeon Master's instruction to recognize Lucion by his actions and not by his voice, and stops attacking it. Lucion takes them to a tree where he's hidden a diamond and some magical items. Lucion holds the pulsating diamond, which is the dragon's heart, and gestures at Presto to cast a spell on him. It appears Venger had turned the gnome mage Lucion into the Man-Thing, so that he couldn't cast spells. Once Lucion returns to his normal self, he takes the children to restore the dragon's heart, while the shadow demon reports to Venger. Lucion cages the orcs and places the stone in the dragon, which coincides with the 4 suns of the realm converging. The sun's light falls on the diamond and gets refracted through various mine rocks, creating a colourful map. However, before Lucion can point the light towards the children's homeworld, Venger appears and he brings the stone statues to life. The statue crushes several gnome houses and even captures Uni, who teleports to escape. Lucion and the heroes fight against Venger, and once again, Presto's magic helps bring down both the statues. Finally, Lucion is able to banish Venger momentarily, but it destroys a portion of the cliff that housed the stones, showing the light to the hero's home. Eric shakes Lucion as he apologizes, and we totally get his emotions, but The Dungeon Master assures us that they'll find the way home one day. Servant of Evil. At the beginning of this episode, we find Venger sending an innocent dwarf to the prison of Agony, which hangs just above a live volcano. Karox the giant is the prison guard, and he refuses to do Venger's bidding, but Venger coerces him by threatening to destroy his homeland. Somewhere far from the volcano, the group surprises Bobby with gifts for his birthday, and Eric presents Bobby with funny little animals that escape. While Bobby and Uni run after the creatures, the others are surrounded by Venger's lizard men. Bobby and Uni return to find them already captured, and the Dungeon Master appears to him. Dungeon Master presents Bobby with a medallion to protect him from Venger, but his power lies in giving and not keeping. Back in the volcano, Venger takes away all the weapons as the kids are sent to prison. When Bobby finds it difficult to locate his friends, the Dungeon Master speaks from the medallion and points him toward the volcano with the highest flame. Back in the prison, the heroes come across various creatures, and Eric can be seen with a Spider-Man comic book. We understand the reference, since the show is co-produced by Marvel, but how on earth did he manage to get a copy of it in this realm? We'll perhaps never know. A knight called Strongheart approaches the heroes and shows them a hole he's dug through for years. Strongheart and the children go through the hole, but are seen by the lizard men, who release a dragon-like creature that forces the group to retreat into the prison. Meanwhile, Bobby finds a raft left by the lizard men and uses it to travel to the volcano. He's stopped by Venger, who orders Karox to capture Bobby. However, the medallion protects Bobby, and when Karox almost falls into the lava, Bobby rescues him. Karox makes a plan with Bobby and lies to Venger that Bobby's club has fallen into the lava. Karox leads Bobby and Uni to the prison and hands him back the club, while Bobby gives his medallion to Karox to protect him. Strongheart comments that once he too had a magical hammer, which Venger had stored in the dungeons, and the others assume that their weapons must also be there. Strongheart is one of the characters with action figures and a sword in the toy line, books, and other merchandise, but it was replaced with a hammer to make it less violent. When Karox descends the drawbridge, Bobby breaks the prison door with his club, and the heroes, along with Strongheart, aim for the dungeon. In the dungeon, they find Strongheart's hammer and helmet, which is not enough, as Venger appears with his lizard men, who are now equipped with the heroes' weapons. The battle is outweighed, but Karox arrives and helps the heroes fight back, while the medallion protects him. Venger summons a two-headed, fire-breathing dragon, which is turned to stone by Presto as he conjures a water hose pipe from his hat. Venger appears to be a sore loser as he brings down the volcano on the heroes, and when he attacks Karox, the spell backfires on him. Venger vanishes while the heroes help the rest of the prisoners escape as the prison goes down in the lava. As all of them are safe, Venger appears as smoke clouds above the volcano. Karox returns the medallion to Bobby and worries that Venger will now destroy his homeland, but Bobby gifts him the medallion as it'll help him protect his home. With one more lesson learned about gifting back on your birthday, the episode ends with the heroes emerging victorious. Quest of the Skeleton Warrior. Once again, the episode starts with Venger flying on his nightmare stallion as he reaches a mountaintop and meets a knight who looks like a skeleton. The knight, called Decion, informs his master that he's found the Circle of Power, which resides in the Lost Tower of Celestial Knights. However, it can only be retrieved by someone with a pure heart, but since Decion is cursed by Venger, he can't get it. Venger then informs him of the 6 kids who quite fit the specifications. The said children are, however, stuck in a different conundrum as they try to cross a wooden bridge while a storm rages on. The Dungeon Master appears and tells them about the Lost Tower, which may help them return home. The bridge collapses after the Dungeon Master vanishes, and Eric is the first to escape, but he comes face to face with Decion and gets scared. All the heroes fight back Decion until Decion tells them he's not there to harm. Decion tells them he is the last celestial knight and can't enter the tower due to his curse. He takes the heroes to the Lean Tower, and they find it more spacious as the children enter. The tower is supposed to test the celestial knights, so it manifests the heroes' worst fears. Sheila gets separated and transported to a place where she's all alone, while Hank gets separated from the group and feels like he failed as a leader. Presto and Eric are transported to a forest-like region, where Eric's face becomes a comical creature. Several banshees appear and laugh at Eric as they steal Presto's glasses. Similarly, Diana turns into an old and feeble woman, while Bobby turns into a crying baby. However, hopes are not all lost as Hank finally comes across the Circle of Power, but he gets distracted by the screams of his friends. Hank finds a crystal ball through which he can see his friends. At first, he thinks he failed, but he soon realizes the Dungeon Master's instructions, and as a true leader, he guides his friends to fight their fears. Surprisingly, Cavaliers, Acrobats, and Barbarians were not part of the original Dungeons & Dragons tabletop RPG, as the characters were first introduced in this series, and the classes were added to the game after Unearthed Arcana. The heroes assemble, and Hank picks up the Circle of Power. The heroes travel to a hilltop with megalithic structures where Decion awaits them. Dungeon Master appears before Hank hands the Circle of Power and reveals that Decion betrayed his clan for the king's jewels, which cursed him, and that can be mended when the circle is broken. Dungeon Master soon vanishes while Venger arrives and snatches the Circle of Power. But when Venger tries to turn Hank into a skeleton warrior, Decion saves him and fights back. The Circle of Power falls on the ground, and the children realize it must be broken. Presto and Hank break the Circle of Power, which creates a whirlwind and blows Venger away. It also turns Decion into his human self, and he calls in a giant eagle, which takes the knight to a new destination. As Decion finally redeems himself, we hope Eric will change his selfish ways and become a better friend. The Garden of Zin. The story starts with the children hunting for food when Diana hooks something big with her javelin. However, it turns out to be a poisonous reptilian creature that bites Bobby when he tries to beat it with his club. Bobby falls sick due to the toxins, and the Dungeon Master tells them about the yellow dragon that can be found in the Garden of Queen Zin and can provide an antidote to the poison. On their way, Bobby falls sicker and has to rest, while Eric leaves to find food for himself. Making Eric this selfish doesn't really go well with the plot and theme of this series, proving once again why executive meddling often ruins perfectly good shows. Meanwhile, a creature called Stalker informs Queen Zin about a knight with the Dungeon Master's weapon entering her kingdom, and Queen Zin hopes the knight could become her king and keep her spell intact. Eric comes across a sack of food and tries to steal it when he's confronted by a donkey-like man called Solars. Solars gives his food to the heroes and asks them to rest in his home. He gets scared after hearing about the heroes' plan to visit Zin's garden and informs him that it's evil. It also looks like Solars has his secrets to hide. Solars points the heroes in the right direction, and while Sheila decides to stay back with Bobby, the rest travel to meet the Queen. The heroes of this show have also cameoed in the recent movie Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves, and they compete with the main cast in the High Sun games. When the heroes come to a fork in the road on a deserted land, the Dungeon Master appears, and Hank notices that he's not speaking in riddles. To expose the imposter, Eric asks what title the Dungeon Master gave him. The imposter fails to answer, but another Dungeon Master appears, and the two Dungeon Masters fight. Hank binds the one who keeps attacking. It's revealed that the Phantom Stalker had impersonated the Dungeon Master. Other Dungeon Master asks the heroes to go right, but as the heroes leave, he turns out to be another Stalker. At Solars' home, Sheila notices a box filled with royal items, but Solar says it belongs to someone else. There are also a lot of chemicals, but none of them can help cure Bobby. Solars appears distressed and panicked as he keeps hiding secrets from Sheila and Uni. The road taken by the heroes ends abruptly, and they get captured by vines while both the stalkers appear and tell them about the trial of the worm. The children are pulled underground while the stalkers update their queen about the night. Is it Hank or Eric? It may also be Presto, since he finds his robes filled with worms. Soon they see a giant worm approaching them in the tunnel, and Diana rides on it. The others also join her as the gigantic worm takes them above ground. After the children successfully finish the trial, the stalkers take the heroes to the queen, who welcomes them. Queen Zin chooses Eric to be her king, and although Eric refuses at first, he agrees when the queen shows him all the jewels and clothes. However, Eric asks the queen to take his friends to the yellow dragon, who must be slayed, as his foot is the antidote for Bobby. The queen shows the group that the yellow dragon is a carnivorous plant with a foot-like part. The queen gives the children a part of the foot, and while they leave, Eric asks them to visit again and bring Solars. The mention of Solars cautions the queen, who sends the stalkers to stop the heroes from going to Solars' house. As the heroes fight the stalkers in the forest, Eric walks the aisle with the queen to get married. However, there are far too many conditions and vows, which makes him question his choice. Back in the forest, Solars throws the chemicals on the stalkers, killing them, and Sheila hugs him in gratitude. A tear from Sheila starts breaking the spell on Solars, who transforms into Sir Lawrence, the kingdom's rightful heir. Bobby recovers after drinking the antidote, and Sir Lawrence thanks Sheila and informs that the spell was placed by his sister, who's become the queen. However, with the spell broken, the queen turns into a ghastly creature, and Eric runs away from the wedding. Sheila also refuses to marry Sir Lawrence, as she wants to accompany her friends. But when the Dungeon Master reappears, Eric turns into a blue-nosed baboon while he tries to check if he's real.
Out of my way, feeble one.
Not that feeble, Venger.
The box. The story begins with the children sharing a light-hearted moment. Eric has a stink problem, but the peace soon turns into chaos as an earthquake causes Hank to fall into the fissure created by the rift of the land. As the children rescue Hank, they find a large purple box. Dungeon Master appears and tells them that it's Zandora's box, which contains nothing but something terrible. However, as Zandora is trapped in another realm, no one can find the box's secret. Dungeon Master instructs the heroes to take it to the Skull Mountain, which will take 1 day, and place it under the shadow of the skull in high noon to open it. The Shadow Demon spies on the children and informs his master Venger, who is the one to trap the Dungeon Master's friend and ally Zandora in another place. Meanwhile, the heroes get attacked by bullywugs, who open the box and vanish inside it. The heroes close the box and follow the map, hoping that saving Zandora will also help them return home. The group finds the Skull Mountain before it's 1 day, and as they see the shadow, they open the box and get inside, with Eric and Presto staying outside. However, the kids inside the box fall through holes and somehow manage to hold onto the walls of a cage as a giant-sized wasp tries to attack them. Eric and Presto hear the screams and get inside the box, but are trapped by Shadow Demon, who closes the lid and sits on it. Eric and Presto land on top of the wasp, and Presto's magic creates 1 more wasp. Hank saves the group from the situation in a heroic manner, while Bobby's club helps them come out of the box. As the Dungeon Master appears, he shows that the Skull Mountain is actually Venger's illusion. The children still find the real Skull Mountain, and when they open the box, Zandora comes out. Zandora looks like the Dungeon Master's female version. Zandora promises to help the children go back home and asks them to get inside. She also promises to take care of Uni. Once inside, the children get back on the roller coaster that brought them here. It's the second and last time the children make it back to their homeworld, although we're sure they would have eventually returned if the series finished properly and the 4th season hadn't been cancelled. So, it's not surprising when Venger appears to foil their plan and blasts off Zandora. Venger follows the children to their homeland and starts destroying the amusement park. Since their weapons don't work on Earth, Hank realizes that he must go back to stop Venger, and the others follow. Eric refuses to return, but joins the others when Venger threatens him. Back in the Dungeons & Dragons realm, Zandora takes the weapons and shoves them inside the box to prevent Venger from getting them, but he still gets the box, and the bridge that helped the children to get back collapses. However, Venger gets transported to another place where Tiamat attacks him. Zandora reveals that she stored the weapons in another hidden place inside the box and returned them to the children. The episode ends with Eric's goofiness and others laughing at his foolishness. Lost children. It's raining in the realm, which has turned Eric's mood from sour to foul. The Dungeon Master tells them that rain usually continues for 3 years in the realm. He also informs the children about the ship of the Lost Children, who can take the heroes back home. Upon reaching a drier place, the heroes are ambushed by lost children who have tribal-like markings all over their bodies. The children clarify that Venger has destroyed their ship and has taken away their only elder, Alfor. The Shadow Demon reports the development to Venger, who has employed Alfor to repair the ship so that Venger can harness its powers. Venger plans to get rid of all the children, but Alfor retorts that he won't work if the children are harmed. Venger then orders Shadow Demon to capture and bring the children, but not harm them. The 2 groups of children spend their night together sharing food when the heroes learn that the lost children are ridiculously old as per human standards. They also add that their elder is around 500 years old. This is understandable since the lost children are aliens from another planet, but our heroes don't know that yet. So if you're a Spelljammer fan, this will be more to your taste. The entire group reaches Venger's castle and finds lizardmen and orcs lounging around. It appears Venger is a real estate tycoon in the realm, since he has so many towers and castles. Sheila volunteers to go inside the castle using her invisibility cloak to rescue Alfor. However, the person Sheila thought to be Alfor turns out to be Venger in disguise, and he imprisons her. On the other hand, Sheila's friends worry about her, and the Dungeon Master appears to them, informing them about the dangers. Venger sends several monsters to capture all the children, but Presto's magic helps them vanish. The older children dress up as hooded monsters, which makes Venger think that they've captured the lost children along with Bobby and Uni. The entire group sneaks into the castle to rescue Sheila, Alfor, and the lost ship. But once again, they're attacked by an undead prisoner. The children escape, but Venger is already aware of their presence in the castle. The heroes and the lost children finally free the real Alfor, who has a Chewbacca-like look that scares the heroes, but also amazes them. It's also probably a shout-out to Star Wars, which is quite common in this series. The group finally makes it to where Venger has kept the spaceship. Again, it's not guarded, since no one would dare to enter this place. The heroes are surprised to learn that Alfor and the Lost Children are from another planet called Axon. However, before they can board the ship, Venger and his lizard men attack the group. Eric gets on the ship and tries to start it, but Alfor says one more repair is needed. As Alfor works on the ship, the rest cover for him. When Alfor is done, all of them board the ship to escape, but Venger changes the doorway. Alfor expertly flies the spaceship through the doorway, but Venger tries his last bet as he bombs the spaceship, which falls and explodes behind a mountain, making Venger think that the young ones and children are dead, while the weapons must be destroyed. Unbeknownst to Venger, the ship crashed into the water, and all the passengers survived. Alfor comments he'll need 15 years to repair the ship. Quite soon for them. But the heroes from Earth can hardly wait and bid goodbye as they go another way.
Now let's play a game of hide and eat.
Don't you mean hide and seek?
Presto spells disorder. There's no break for our heroes, as the final episode of this season starts with them being chased by a stegosaurus. The group enters a cave to escape, only to find orc soldiers inside. Surrounded by two dangers from both sides, Presto is forced to help his friends escape to safety. But as usual, something goes wrong, and he creates a tornado that takes his friends to another faraway land, while Presto and Uni stay back in the cave. The wind has scared away the monsters, and as Presto and Uni come out of the cave, they meet the Dungeon Master. DM has a cryptic message for Presto to climb the mountain out of courage, meet 3 strangers, and give away what's most important to him. The Dungeon Master also informs Presto that the others are in a place where they're likely to face enormous trouble. This is quite literal, and we'll soon find out why. Presto's friends get chased by another beastly creature, but are forced to stop when they face a glass-like force field. Bobby breaks the glass to escape, and Eric trips on a large fork. It turns out that the heroes have landed in the house of a fury giant, who picks them up and introduces them to his little pet, Willy the Slime Beast. The giant lets go of the kids as he announces a game of hide and eat. That means the children will have to hide while the slime beasts must find and eat them. You might be surprised to learn that this series has a theme song in France called La Souris de Dragon by Dorothy, which means the dragon smile, which is also its title in France, while in Brazil it's called Caverna do Dragão, meaning Dragon's Cave. Dulces has also sung a song for the Spanish version called Dragón y Mazmorras, which is a wordplay on the actual title. Now, getting back to where we left Presto and Uni, they reach an inn where a 3-headed person seeks to buy Uni so that he can sell her in the market. Presto refuses, but the 3-headed stranger forces Presto to play a game of luck and cheats to get their hands on Uni. The stranger hands Presto 3 useless marbles, but when a sad and frustrated Presto throws them into the ground, it creates a long tower that reaches the clouds. Okay, this reminds us of the Jack and Beanstalk story. Back at the giant's house, Willy captures Bobby, but the heroes work together to save him and defeat the slime beast. The giant is much too concerned about his eggs and sends Willy to collect them while he uses the kids for entertainment. The kids break the giant's toys, antagonize him, and run away. Meanwhile, Uni escapes from the 3-headed monster and goes back to Presto, forcing him to enter the tower, but other dragons are lurking inside. Presto and Uni rescue a baby yellow dragon, only for its mother to come after them. Presto throws the baby dragon to its mother, but she still chases after Presto and Uni. As they come out on top, they notice the slime beast stealing a golden dragon egg. Presto also hears Eric scream and runs to the giant's castle. The slime beast delivers the egg to the giant and chases after the kids, but Presto's magical Tweedle saves them. Presto also snatches the egg from the giant and hands it to Eric. The egg hatches, and the baby dragon starts licking Eric. However, this works in their favor, as the mother dragon licks Eric in appreciation for rescuing her baby. All of them get down from the beanstalk, but the giant follows and starts climbing down. Working on his own has boosted Presto's confidence as he casts a spell that'll shrink the giant. Although the spell doesn't work perfectly, it at least breaks the tower and vanishes with the giant. The Dungeon Master appears and informs that the hero saved one of the good dragon breeds from going extinct. However, that's not the least, as Mother Dragon settles in the rubble and accepts Eric as one of her own. Season 2, The Girl Who Dreamed Tomorrow. As the second season begins, there's little change for our hero still trying to return home. As they run from a group of bullywugs, the gang finds a roller coaster cart filled with muck. Bobby hears a scream, and a dog pulls Eric towards it. The gang finds a little girl in modern clothing tied to a tree while guarded by lizard men. A clash between the lizard men and the bullywugs becomes inevitable as both groups loaf around with Eric. During the scuffle with the monsters, the girl saves Diana by predicting bullywugs targeting her from the trees. The gang saves Eric and escapes with the little girl called Terry and her dog, Freddy. Terry tells them how she and Freddy traveled to the realm the same way as the other children, but what's surprising is Terry can see the future. The Dungeon Master appears to the group, informs them of a portal on a mountain range that can take them home. But of course, the children have to pass through the maze of darkness to get to it. Since this is the first episode of the season, we need a bit of Venger in it. The Shadow Demon spies on the children and reports it to Venger. Terry has a dream, and her little gold heart pendant glows simultaneously. She dreams of a dragon attacking Bobby and Uni while the portal opens above the maze. The next day, the group tries to catch large chickens for lunch. Terry forms a bond with Bobby. However, they're soon attacked by the dragon that Terry has seen in her dream. Terry bravely fights the dragon and rescues Bobby, while Eric valiantly saves them with the help of his shield. The children finally find safety beyond a waterfall, but it's only momentary. They reach the mountains with sharp edges that they must destroy. To add to their troubles, Venger appears and seeks to seize Terry's dreaming abilities. The children escape, but arrive in front of the maze of darkness. Inside the maze, the heroes are forced to counter several challenges, and it's established that Terry is Bobby's girlfriend. Bobby is even ready to fight Eric for Terry. The maze also has several empty and similar-looking armors fighting each other, which makes Hank realize that everyone is fighting because of the magic within the maze's walls. He instructs his friends to stop the fight and also notices they're close to the portal to home. As the group takes a moment to rest, Terry has another dream. She reunites with Bobby in her school on the homeworld, and Bobby has her locket. When she wakes up, the Dungeon Master appears and reveals that her dream will indeed come true one day. The Dungeon Master also confesses that many of his pupils have died while crossing Venger's maze of darkness. He explains that if the group take the portal home, it'll stay intact and lure more to their doom. We feel a little sad every time the children fail to go home, when in fact the original concept had the children living in the real world but playing each episode as a gaming session in an old theatre. The elderly custodian would act as the Dungeon Master and impart some moral lessons, but the idea was scratched as it didn't add much tension and drama. Just as DM finishes with his riddles, the maze starts falling and the group has to run for it. Thankfully, Terry remembers her dream and guides the others through the portal. The team faces another hiccup as Venger stops them from entering and wants Terry in exchange for the gang's freedom to go back home. As the children refuse, Venger turns into an evil dragon and attacks them. Hank distracts the dragon. Bobby takes Terry to the portal and sends her to the homeworld. Before parting, Terry leaves her locket with Bobby. The heroes then destroy the portal that engulfs Venger, and they leave. Later, Bobby sulks about missing Terry and tries to throw away the locket, but as DM tells him about Terry's dream, we see a newly energized Bobby. The Treasure of Tardos. It's another day, which means it's another challenge for our heroes. But this time, it's much simpler, as Bobby tries to give Uni a bath, only for him and Eric to get wet. Soon, a water dragon appears, but it scurries away as if afraid of something. The Dungeon Master appears and tells them that the realm might soon get destroyed by a demo dragon, which is half a demon, half dragon. Dungeon Master hands the heroes a map to Tardos Keep, where they must work with those against them. The children first come across a frozen river due to all the trees being destroyed. Then they move on to the Dust Land, which is a dusty desert, and finally they reach Tardos Keep, which is surrounded by orc soldiers. The children try to sneak into Tardos Keep, but the Shadow Demon and the orcs notice them and attack. The children approach the gate, but Venger also appears, and the heroes somehow manage to get inside. Queen Solinara of Tardos Keep comes to meet the children, and is doubtful of them, but she accepts their help when she learns they know Dungeon Master. Solinara refuses to share Tardos' treasure with Venger, who then brings the two-headed Demo Dragon to break the door of Tardos Keep. The children at once assemble to stop the Demo Dragon, but it takes away their weapons, which in turn releases Venger's control over the Demo Dragon. Venger is forced to retreat, and the heroes buy time to explore Tardos Keep. Queen Solinara explains that Venger wants the Dragonbane to weaken a dragon, so he created the Demo Dragon to force Solinara to share the treasure. The children also discern that Venger probably wants the Dragonbane to defeat Tiamat. On the other hand, the Dungeon Master disguises as another old person and presents Uni with a garland for reasons yet unknown. The children also work out the DM's clue and join forces with Venger. Venger gives Ranger a talisman and asks him to point it toward the Demo Dragon. However, Venger isn't trustworthy, as he orders Shadow Demon to take the orcs and follow the heroes. Fun fact for fellow gamers, the 5th edition Player's Handbook released in 2024 features several interior art that has the older versions of Hank, Bobby, Presto, and Diana, while Dungeon Master's Guide has Venger on the cover. However, the digital accessory of Player's Handbook Expanded has the older version of the entire team on the cover, indicating how iconic this series has been for the fans. Now, back to our tale. The talisman doesn't work as it should. When it breaks, light reflects and blinds the Demo Dragon momentarily. Hank breaks the talisman, allowing the light to inflict pain upon the Demo Dragon, and it lets go of the weapons. However, Eric and Uni are still captured by the Demo Dragon. The garland on Uni's neck finally vanquishes the Demo Dragon, which disappears into the air with a magnificent light, making the children realize that the garland is the Dragon's Bane. Although Shadow Demon and the orcs approach to attack, Venger stops them. For the first and only time, Venger shows some conscience and lets the children go for the day to make them even. The heroes take the Dragon's Bane back to Solinara and wonder if Venger could ever change. Dungeon Master watches them go and sheds some tears as he confesses to himself that Venger is his mistake. So, are we now ready for some big reveal? City at the edge of midnight. The story starts with a child called Jimmy getting abducted from his house on Earth at midnight. Jimmy starts calling for his dad when something pulls him from under the bed and Jimmy vanishes just before his father can grab on. In the realm of Dungeons and Dragons, the heroes are quite lost thanks to Eric. The Dungeon Master appears with his daily riddles and asks the heroes to visit the city at the edge of midnight. He also asks them to save the children who are more lost. Soon after, Eric falls and lands on what appears to be an oasis, but the group is attacked by monsters with hooks called the Hook Horrors. However, to their great surprise, a middle-aged man appears on a mammoth and helps the children to fight the monsters. The loving and joyful man introduces himself as Ramood, the caravan merchant, and explains that the Hook Horrors were once people who turned into monsters when they stayed overnight at the oasis. Ramood invites the children to join his caravan and takes them to his camp. The children enjoy a hearty meal after a long time, but Ramood gets sad while talking about his daughter Aisha, who's gone missing. Later that night, the children share how Ramood is like their dad. It's especially disheartening when Eric, the son of a wealthy father, comments that Ramood is better than his dad. Ramood comes to visit the children at night and gifts Sheila his daughter's doll. But disaster strikes soon as Bobby gets abducted the same way Jimmy did at the start of the episode. However, now we know a gigantic and demonic beast called Nightwalker has kidnapped Bobby. Ramood and the others try to save Bobby but fail as the portal closes, and Ramood explains it's the same monster that got his daughter and took her to the city at the edge of midnight. Furious about the incident, Eric and the others vouch to get back to Bobby. Along with Ramood, they reopen the portal and travel to the desolate city. Upon arriving, the group notices that the clock is running late and fails to realize it's stuck. They soon get cornered by little demons who take them to where the other children are. The group is astounded to find the children working as slaves for Nightwalker, who reveals that the children are here to prevent the clock from turning to midnight. Nightwalker also tells Ramood that Aisha and Bobby are working on a tower above. Despite being a pretty old show, this series has been quite pioneering in bringing forth a common trope of children being lost in an enchanted land. As a result, it became extremely popular in places like Brazil, where Renault even created a cinematic live-action commercial using the heroes, and they, along with Uni and Venger, made it back home. For now, the challenge is to send the other lost children back home. The group attacks Nightwalker, gets on a lever to go above. They jump on the top floor and find Bobby, but not Aisha. The heroes destroy the entrapments, enabling the clock to turn midnight, finally breaking the spell on Nightwalker and the children. The beast vanishes, and the children go back home. However, more surprises are in store as Jimmy Whittaker appears to be the hero's classmate, and he informs them it's Sunday night. So, the children might not be missing for more than a day in the real world. Jimmy gets transported home while our heroes are returned to Ramood's camp. Dungeon Master appears to them, calling Ramood Your Majesty and revealing he's a king of many kings. Aisha has also returned home and reunites with her father, but now the children have a choice to make, as Ramood loves them and calls them my children. The children leave to seek their way home, and their parents must be worried too. However, thanks to Ramood, our heroes have enough supplies to make a better journey. The Traitor. It's a stormy and chilly night in the realm as the children try their best to keep warm before they meet the Dungeon Master on the other side of the Moon Forest. The children fall asleep while Hank keeps a watch. The sky clears up after some time, and Hank notices Dungeon Master, who warns him of great jeopardy for his friends and more difficult situations for him. The first challenge is, however, cute and fluffy, as three teddy bear-like creatures appear out of nowhere to steal the weapons. When the children wake up and confront them, the talking teddy bears introduce themselves as Cloud Bears. The Cloud Bears assume the children to be associated with the Green Orc soldiers, who, coincidentally, attack at the same time. The Orcs abduct Bobby and Hank, while the other children follow the Cloud Bears into their homes. The Cloud Bears use an elevator system to travel upward on the trees, while Sheila sneaks away using her invisibility cloak. The Cloud Bears closely resemble the Care Bears, released in the 80s. They could also be an homage to the Ewoks from Star Wars, as they also inhabit Endor's Moon Forest. The Cloud Bears introduce the remaining heroes to their king, but soon the Orcs start cutting the trees. The Cloud Bears don't seem to have any weapons and dump nuts and fruits on the evil creatures. However, Sheila is in for a heartbreak as she overhears Hank speaking with an orc leader about attacking the Cloud Bears. The orcs retreat, and Hank returns to the Cloud Bears' tree houses. Hank is upset and tells them that Bobby couldn't escape. Sheila also arrives behind him and accuses him of being a traitor. Sheila is ready to throw hands as she accuses Hank of putting Bobby in danger. We understand her sister's concern and why this betrayal hurts, since it's pretty apparent that Sheila and the others admire Hank, and fans of the show consider Hank and Sheila as endgame. However, they're the only people in the series who don't get a love interest. Hank doesn't reply to any probes or questions, and to prove that she's speaking the truth, Sheila orders Hank to signal the orcs. Although the situation turns bleak with the orcs attacking, watching the Cloud Bears pray to the Cloud Gods for respite is slightly funny. But the trick works. Clouds and rain stop the orc attack, and the sky clears up once they're gone. Hank gets banished from the place, but a Cloud Bear hands him a Heartstone locket for good luck. The Dungeon Master encourages Hank to find the courage within. Hank goes to Venger, who's tied up Bobby and promises not to harm him if Hank follows his bidding. Hank throws away the Heartstone in anger and exasperation, but it inflicts Venger with pain. Hank realizes that it's why Venger might seek the destruction of the Cloud Bears. The orcs take a cart up the tree to attack. Presto turns his hat into cloth for a balloon. The heroes and the Cloud Bears try to escape in the balloon, but it gets punctured by the orcs. Hank approaches them to help, but Sheila refuses to listen to him. As an outstanding leader, Hank manages the situation and makes others listen as he explains everything to them. The group reaches Venger's palace, and while Hank rescues Bobby, the Cloud Bears throw Heartstones at Venger, making him disintegrate and disappear. The Cloud Bear King gifts the last stone to Hank, but he refuses, and the DM appears with another mission to find the possible way home. With friendships and trust restored, the situation turns ordinary, and the group has a good laugh, courtesy of Eric. Key moment. What do you think is the reason the children are stuck in the realm of D&D? Do you know Venger has a master, which is the evil of all evils, and even the DM is afraid of him. Keep watching to see how the children defeat all evils and what they do when Venger's sister comes into the scene. Day of the Dungeon Master. It's been a long time since the children have been following the Dungeon Master's instruction, but Eric is naive enough to assume he can do more in his position. Dungeon Master takes up the offer and gives Eric all his powers to make him the new DM. Reminds him it's only a temporary situation. Although good old DM tells them he's going on a vacation, we're sure things are not that simple. It doesn't amuse the team as they become aware of Eric's misuse of powers. The children begin their journey towards the city of Darkhaven to acquire the Golden Grimoire, which is their latest quest as set up by the Dungeon Master. Shadow Demon reports to Venger, who decides to use the children to get his own hands on the artifact. On the other hand, Eric is trying his best to make riddles, but he gets booed by the tough audience. It also appears that his personality hasn't changed as he gets afraid of a Yeti, and Hank has to save him. Even though it was a rocky start, Eric saves the team from the storm clouds created by Venger, but miserably fails when he summons a rock to take them to the city of Darkhaven. The bird gets attacked by a red dragon, and it's now up to Presto's magic and Hank's arrows to save others from turning pancakes. The group finally makes it to the place on foot and finds it dark and empty, just as it should be. Venger also follows them quietly. Eric's experience as a DM is lacking, but he still possesses the knowledge, so he guides the team through the castle to find the room with the Golden Grimoire. As pages start fluttering, Eric reads the spells and opens a portal to Earth for the heroes to return. Eric asks them to leave the weapons and promises his magic will protect Uni to try to make it home. Certainly, Venger is not far behind, but it's quite stupid of him to prevent the heroes from going. Venger tries to take away the weapons, but Eric approaches him to take one for the team, yet he proves weaker than Venger's power. The animation in this climax sequence is impressive compared to the rest of the episode. Diana goes to recover the weapons that further help the fight back. Tonya Gale Smith, who voices Diana, was even nominated for Outstanding Young Actress in an Animation Voiceover in the 1984-85 Youth in Film Awards. Eric too remembers the Dungeon Master's instruction of using knowledge as a shield, so he uses the grimoire as a shield to protect himself. But it not only defeats Venger, but also gets destroyed, closes the portal, and brings down the city. The heroes escape, but Eric feels guilty for letting down his friends, although it's one of the rarest times when everybody appreciates him. When the Dungeon Master reappears and congratulates Eric for being selfless, it uplifts his mood. But Eric wants to be the Cavalier again, and you know what that means. Cavalier, once again, turns the comic relief. The Last Illusion. In this Presto-focused episode, the heroes pass through the stinky swamp of darkness when they get attacked by a giant octopus. Presto tries to make the stink and the monster go away with some magic, but he gets separated from the rest of the group. A female voice guides him away from the monster, and he sees a young girl reaching out to him. The girl appears like a ghost and seeks his help to be rescued from the Forbidden Tower. But that's enough for Presto to fall for her as she fades away. The Dungeon Master appears to Presto and tells him that the girl is like him and has similar powers. Presto is soon attacked by an elderly man who thinks no one good can survive the swamp, but Presto's friends come to his help. The man Jareth is stopped by his wife Mirinda, who invites the children for dinner despite the loud protests from Jareth. The village is really in dire conditions as everyone looks poor and grim. The couple feeds the children delicious lizard soup because, well, that's the only thing they can get. An agonized Jareth explains that once his daughter Vala went missing in the swamp and the crop started dying and the village has been barely surviving. Presto realizes that the girl he saw is Vala and tells them, but before he can explain further, Presto experiences a headache. Presto seems to be connected with Vala as she too is in pain. Of course, both of them also have the same hair color. It appears Venger is forcing Vala to make illusions by threatening to harm her parents. As a storm destroys everything, the villagers assume Presto is responsible. Presto tries to douse the fire with magic, but it increases as he again writhes in pain. Meanwhile, Vala becomes weaker, but Venger doesn't care, and he forces her to make him turn into a white knight and turns his nightmare into a white horse. Venger, as the white knight, appears to the villagers and stops the rain and the clouds. He brands the children as evil and responsible for dark magic, which makes the villagers go berserk and imprison the children. Venger takes away the weapons and locks them up in his tower. In the prison, Hank tends to Presto until he wakes up, while Eric has the brilliant idea of creating a ruckus so that someone is forced to come to the prison and they can escape. With Venger allowing Vala a break, she again projects herself to Presto and explains everything. Her parents also arrived at the same time and were glad to see her alive. Jareth and Mirinda help the children to escape, but get caught by the angry villagers instead. The gang reaches the Forbidden Tower, and the Dungeon Master provides the children with some moral strength. They dupe the Orc guards and get inside. Okay, confession time again. We know it's a cult series and a great one for children. In January 2009, IGN ranked the show 64th among the best 100 animated series. But come on, Eric has to be the MVP, because without his one-liners and remarks, we doubt it would have been this fun. However, this one's about Presto, who leads the group to Vala. A weak Vala creates an illusion for the heroes to look like orcs to the others. However, Venger realizes the trick and attacks them. The battle between Venger and the heroes breaks the force field guarding Vala, and Presto rushes to her. Diana tells Vala about Venger being afraid of Tiamat and defines what she looks like. Vala creates a last illusion where she appears as Tiamat to scare away Venger. The destruction causes the tower to go down, Venger to escape, and Vala to vanish. The villagers arrive at the spot and again refuse to believe the children, as they now blame them for Vala's death. However, the Dungeon Master comes to their rescue and tells Presto to look into his heart. Presto finds Vala, and the lovers reunite as the illusion of the poor and destroyed village vanishes. So, the village wasn't really in that dreadful condition. As things end on a happy note, Dungeon Master bows to the viewers. The Dragon's Graveyard. The quests and challenges for our heroes are never-ending as they defeat a frost giant and find a new way back home between glaciers. As usual, Venger arrives to destroy the portal and collect the weapons. The children escape but are at wit's end as they become extremely frustrated and annoyed with Venger destroying their every chance to go home. Watching little Bobby cry for his parents, home, and friends is heart-wrenching and our only gripe with the plot. For who keeps children stuck in a world to fight demons? Oh right, the Dungeon Master, who gets a cold treatment from the kids as he appears with another quest. The situation has turned bleak, as Hank is the one who's truly bent on finishing Venger for good and demands that DM stops talking in riddles. The children decide they need Tiamat's help to finish Venger. Dungeon Master informs that Tiamat can be found where dragons go to die, the Dragon's Graveyard. It's also the place where the children's weapons were made. Considering it's a predominantly kids' show, the subject of this episode is quite dark. This is also surprisingly one of the highest-rated episodes in the entire series, let alone the second season. This certainly tells you what viewers actually like. Talking about frustrations, somebody else shares Hanks' mood, and that's Venger himself, as once more the children have escaped. He attacks the children in the middle of the road, but Uni gets severely injured, which makes Bobby mad. The heroes take cover inside a cave, and Hank remembers that the dungeon master said he should be the one who starts finding the dragon's graveyard. As Hank shoots an arrow inside the cave, it forms a glowing sphere. The sphere gets larger as it touches each of the weapons, and ultimately Bobby smashes it, which teleports the children, leaving Venger infuriated. The heroes finally arrive at what appears to be Dragon's graveyard, but there are skeletons of soldiers and various weapons. As Presto blows out on a horn, Tiamat appears and attacks them. The heroes' weapons also turn more powerful at the source of their origin, but it's not enough to beat Tiamat. However, the five-headed dragon listens to the heroes as they mention Venger. She informs that the heroes can defeat Venger in that place and goes to find him. Curiously enough, Frank Welker is the only one who got an starring credit as Tiamat, while the rest of the cast were only credited by name and not their characters. In fact, Frank Welker has also voiced Uni and other creatures throughout the series. As Uni gets sicker, all the helpless Bobby can do is seek vengeance, which worries Hank as he feels little boys shouldn't harbor such hatred. However, this unnaturally self-reflexive episode will soon have Hank question his own emotions. Tiamat visits Venger and tells them that he'll have the opportunity to gain the weapons to rule the realm in the dragon's graveyard, and knocks him into the portal. Meanwhile, the children examine more weapons and even find a net that looks like it's alive. As Venger enters the dragon's graveyard, he wakes up the skeletons with weapons. An ultimate battle ensues as the power shifts between the two groups. Finally, Presto has Venger restrained, and now it's up to Hank to kill him. However, Hank releases him, explaining that he doesn't want to be like Venger. The dungeon master appears and uses the net to cure Uni. He then goes to Venger, calls him his son, and sends him back to the realm. So now we know the big secret, and probably why DM has got the kids stuck in the place in the first place. However, the children don't hear this exchange, as it had definitely brought trouble. But as DM and the kids leave, aren't we forgetting someone else who wanted Venger's end? Child of the Stargazer. The last episode of Season 2 begins with Diana humming the end credits and spending a relaxing time, as even others are found lounging. Hank and Sheila are also getting cozy. Oh, just date already. A weak and unkempt boy comes out of the bushes and falls on Diana, as she falls for him. In the city of Turad, the Demon Queen Sidith chastises the old and feeble king for letting go of the prisoner from the dungeon, as she fears it might make a prophecy come true. Back to the heroes. Presto helps the guy get a clean shave, who introduces himself as Kozar. Kozar explains that he escaped from a dungeon after 10 long years. Dungeon Master appears and tells them that a demon has taken hold of the city of Turad, and around 100,000 people are waiting for a prophecy to be fulfilled that'll make them free. According to a 1,000-year-old legend, the child of a stargazer from a faraway land will appear on the night of Starfall and stand in the Temple of Light to banish the demon and return home. The heroes must help the child to get back to their own home. Kozar reveals that he's the one who's supposed to fulfill the prophecy, as he was born in a faraway land, and his father was an astrologer, but the demon abducted him when he was only 8 and locked him in the dungeon. Soon, several soldiers on winged bat-like creatures attack, looking for Kozar, and the heroes fight together to defeat them. Kozar is especially impressed by Diana's acrobatic movements, and it looks like he has a crush, too. As the soldiers retreat, the group tends to follow them, confident enough to resolve the situation, but has to hold back when Kozar reveals the Queen is the demon. Back in Turad, the Queen gets furious at the soldiers for failing to catch Kozar and takes things into her own hands as she casts a spell. The king and his son devise a strategy to get the child of the Stargazer into the temple. However, Turad is still far away for the children as they get exhausted while walking. But not Kozar, Diana, and Uni. As Eric points out to Bobby, Diana and Uni are rather smitten by Kozar. It's surprising that many D&D fans don't like the Kozar and Diana ship, as they feel that Eric is Diana's one true love. Although there's absolutely no such evidence in the show that suggests this pairing, except for the fact that Eric and Diana belong to the same world and are more likely to get together in the future. Right now, Eric is busy teasing Bobby. The group gets confronted by a tornado in the middle of the road, which takes Kozar and Diana away and right into the city. The Demon Queen tries to attack them, but Diana and Kozar escape with the help of her javelin. Without Kozar leading the way to the city, the others are visibly lost and agitated when the Dungeon Master appears. He points out that they should follow the first star, but one must choose between home and heart. The heroes notice the star and follow, while back in the city, Kozar insists that Diana return to her friends. However, Diana reveals that she too is a child of a stargazer, since she came from a faraway land and her father is an astronomer. The prince meets Diana and Kozar and shows them the hidden passage to the Temple of Light as the starfall starts. The others also reach the city at the same time and escape the guard. They find the temple, but it's guarded by the soldiers and the Demon Queen, who finally reveals her entire face, and it's a half-human and half-demon. The heroes fight the queen and her soldiers while Diana, Kozar, the king, and the prince enter the temple. The demon queen blasts through the temple door while trying to hit Eric. She watches Kozar head towards the light and hits him just before Kozar stands in place. As Kozar falls, Diana runs and takes his place, which fulfills the prophecy and banishes the demon. Diana also opens a portal for the children to return home, but Sheila reminds Diana that Kozar will die if they leave. Diana makes the hard choice as she takes Kozar's place, and Kozar becomes one with the star. Kozar promises to remember his one true love, Diana, forever. The king shares his gratitude to Diana, who's upset about being separated from her love, but the Dungeon Master promises that they'll meet once again. Season 3, The Dungeon at the Heart of Dawn. D&D's third and final season starts in complete darkness, saving a substantial animation budget as Eric and Bobby retrieve the box of balefire. As the two argue, the tower behind them crumbles and falls. The rest of the group waits for them leisurely, and once again, Hank is leaning on Sheila, truly relaxed. It seems the children have finally submitted to their fate and accepted these daily quests like their regular schoolwork. Despite the Dungeon Master's prohibitions, Eric is too enthusiastic to open the black box of danger, and Hank couldn't care less. Eric opens the lock, the Dungeon Master stops him from opening the lid. However, it's not a save, as the lid opens by itself and sends a beacon until the Dungeon Master shuts and locks it again. Shadow Demon reports it to Venger, who can't believe his ears, and awaits his master's arrival. Soon, the ultimate doom arrives on the realm in the form of lightning, and chastises Venger for failing to defeat the Dungeon Master. On the other hand, Dungeon Master looks equally afraid of the storm, as he asks Bobby to bury the box. He forces the children to run and hide, but they question him. We understand that the makers wanted to add some dramatic moments, but not naming this big bad is kinda losing the point, especially since, well, according to him, this evil exists in every world. Dungeon Master teleports the children away from the evil, but it follows him. Dungeon Master again teleports them, but he's too weak and ends up where they started. Eric apologizes to the Dungeon Master for opening the box, but the DM assumes he took permission from Hank. Dungeon Master instructs Hank not to give up on leadership and hope. He instructs the children not to look into the face of the evil, but Eric does, and it blasts them off. Dungeon Master still saves them by bringing them to the underworld. However, the powers of their weapons are lost, as DM has used its power for their safety. Eric takes care of DM, as he instructs the heroes to find the dungeon at the Heart of Dawn, which can revive him. Venger is also in the underworld, as he too has spent much of his power attacking his nameless master, and decides to follow the children secretly. As the heroes cross the plains of fire, they encounter different obstacles and get separated one by one. The hero's cameo in the movie has placed the series in the Forgotten Realms setting. In Forgotten Realms, the Grand Tour, Presto prefers to be called Preston, although his real name was previously established as Albert. Presto falls from a narrow cliff and gets stranded on a rock, while Diana stops to take care of giant salamanders. Venger sends his slave Ugar to stop the heroes from reviving Dungeon Master, who's almost fading away. A giant purple worm further separates Eric from the group, while Ranger stays back to fight Venger. Bobby stays to fight Ugar and his goblin gang. Bobby's club breaks, and the goblins catch Sheila. Dungeon Master protects himself one more time and finally reaches the heart, which replenishes him and the weapons. The heroes defeat Venger, who reminds them that they're still doomed to remain in the underworld to protect themselves from the unnamed terror. However, DM and his gang are ready for the ultimate fight and huddle together, forcing Venger and Shadow Demon to join them reluctantly. To their surprise, they find that the terror has already left the realm to destroy other worlds, but may very well return. The Time Lost. What's an animated series without a World War storyline? Well, incomplete. This episode touches on that, but we'll get on it later. The story begins humbly with Presto trying to cut Eric's hair when a blue dragon attacks them. Presto loses his glass temporarily, but when he finds it, another warrior enters the fight, and it's a pilot flying a US fighter jet. The bewildered pilot tries to reach the control tower as it continues to attack the dragon. The children try to follow it. Plane goes missing in the clouds. The Dungeon Master appears to them and informs them about another portal opening that they can use to get back home. Meanwhile, Venger follows the pilot and finally subdues him. Venger locks the pilot with several other men from different times on Earth. Venger tells the Shadow Demon that the Crystal of Kronos has brought in several people, but none of them are of the right time and place, as he needs someone who can make the children cease to exist. As the portal opens, it reveals Earth during World War II, and a fighter plane enters the realms. Hank and Eric rush to the pilot and help him out. The pilot introduces himself as Joseph Muller, and takes quite a liking to Diana. As the children discuss his plane, they realize that Joseph is from the time of the Second World War. Learning that the children are from the future, Joseph goes to a river and rips off his armband, which proves that he's a German soldier. The children find out, but promise to take him to the future when they find a way back home. However, that may remain a dream since Venger attacks, and as the group flees, it sets a forest on fire. Venger abducts Joseph, while Hank breaks the dam to douse the fire. The dungeon master tells them about Venger's plan to use the German soldier to make Germany win the war so that the US is destroyed and the children are never born. A little information on the show's history is that the DVDs weren't released until 2005 due to several changes in ownership. Although the DVDs went out of production, they're now available through Mill Creek Entertainment. When the DVDs were first released, the original music was replaced with generic music as Disney didn't have clearance. However, all the original scores were restored when Mill Creek re-released it in 2009. Coming back to Venger's plan to rewrite history, he takes Joseph to the US fighter jet and tells him that this modern plane can help him win the war. We have to applaud Venger for thinking it's this easy to win a war. Venger also uses magic to teach Joseph to fly the modern jet. When the children arrive, Venger mocks and teases them as he informs them that he struck a deal with Joseph, allowing Joseph to return home and ensure Germany wins the war. Joseph gets on the plane. Instead of going back, he destroys the Crystal of Kronos and also ensures that the fighter jet crashes. The crystal's destruction makes all of Venger's Earth prisoners disappear and return home. Joseph ejects himself from the plane before it explodes and uses the parachute to return to his time in the portal. Just as it closes up, Venger leaves, swearing vengeance, but Diana is still upset as Joseph has left. Dungeon Master appeases her, saying Joseph will now fight for their freedom and against the dictator. Odyssey of the 12th Talisman. As time passes, the kids have become accustomed to fighting a host of new monsters and creatures. Even Eric has learned a few tricks as he and Diana lure some camel-like creatures called cameloids to fall into a ditch. The gang is searching for the Stone of Astra and has encountered these beastly creatures. Eric also manages to make them madder, and now their only solution is to run. Somewhere nearby, a lonely orphan boy looks for food when he finds a talisman. The boy tries to exchange the talisman for some loaf of bread from a group of travelers, but they refuse. An evil wizard steals bread and frames the boy, making the men attack him, but the talisman protects the boy and hurts the others. The men run after the boy, who comes across the heroes being chased by the cameloids. The boy knocks down Eric, and the talisman makes the cameloids and the people run away. The boy introduces himself as Lorne, and the power of his talisman impresses the kids, who ask him to join. Although Lorne travels with the kids, he keeps bickering with Eric, and it seems they share the same brain cells. Eric soon befriends Lorne and gets moved by the fact that he has no parents. The next day, Lorne feels hungry, and Eric tries to catch a rabbit for him when the dungeon master appears and reveals that the talisman Lorne is wearing is the Stone of Astra, but it needs to be destroyed. DM explains that although the talisman protects Lorne, it attracts evil and imposes danger on the rest of the group. However, the children are unwilling to destroy the talisman, and the evil wizard overhears them. The wizard, seeking the 12th talisman, aims rocks at the group, and while Lorne protects himself, the situation worsens for the other kids as they get hurt by the stone pellets. Lorne loses control over the talisman as the evil wizard takes control, and once the crisis is averted, the children tell Lorne to destroy it. Lorne refuses and gets into an argument with Eric. Lorne leaves the group, but the others get worried about him, and Eric feels guilty for letting him go. Eric leaves alone and finds Lorne, but they get lost. Eric notices the campers from earlier and approaches them, but the people think of Eric as an evil wizard and capture him. A woman knows that Eric and Lorne are just kids, but the leader doesn't believe them. Just then, the evil wizard appears and confines everyone in a force field as he seeks the Stone of Astra from Lorne. Eric is surprised that it's the talisman, which means he didn't understand the Dungeon Master's cryptic message. There's no doubt that the series has been a cult classic, so much so that IDW Publishing even released a 4-issue miniseries called Dungeons & Dragons Saturday Morning Adventures that continued the story of our heroes. However, it was poorly received due to significant changes in the characters' personalities. The others also arrive, but get stopped by the wizard, leaving no choice for Lorne other than to give up the talisman to save everybody. Surprisingly, the Dungeon Master catches the talisman, and the wizard Corlock becomes afraid of the Dungeon Master. Apparently, Corlock had been on a long quest to find this 12th talisman so that he could win a fight at least once. Yet Dungeon Master reminds us that the talisman will always bring great evil, and right on cue, Venger enters and wants the talisman for himself. Another fight ensues between Venger and the heroes, which ends with Corlock wearing the talisman, defeating Venger, and then destroying it. Later, Lorne leaves with the travelers as they've accepted him, but Eric misses his new friend. On the other hand, Corlock's redemption transforms him for good. Citadel of Shadow. The episode begins with Eric back to his usual annoying self as he mocks and teases Sheila for getting them into trouble. The group managed to secure a ring that could send them home, while Orc soldiers kept a watch over them. The gang gets surrounded by the Orcs, but manages to run away until they arrive at a mountain with several monstrous stone gargoyles. It's astonishing to see the Orcs leave, but they report to Venger that they've trapped the young ones on the hill. Eric belittles Sheila, who feels sad and angry as she asks everyone to leave her alone. That night, she wakes up by the sound of a girl crying, and follows it with Uni. Sheila, who's always afraid of being alone, takes the drastic step of not taking anyone's help and follows the sound until she finds a girl her age confined in a magic prison. Sheila rescues the girl by breaking a spell that has some odd effect on Venger. If you haven't noticed, Sheila is the only group member who's never mentioned as thief by the Dungeon Master or anywhere in the episodes, except for the opening credits. Yeah, it's probably because the title sounds derogatory. In the morning, everyone worries about Sheila, and Bobby blames Eric, but the Dungeon Master appears and informs that Sheila is safe, for now. He also informs them how the Ring of Heart and Ring of Mind can help them go back home, but he doesn't clarify which ring the kids have already acquired. They take the Dungeon Master's advice and follow the shadows to find Sheila and the ring, while Eric notices footprints. Suddenly, the hills converge on the kids, trapping them. Meanwhile, the girl, Karina, takes Sheila and Uni to the Citadel of Shadow, where Karina's brother has kept the Ring of Power. The others also escape from the hills and reach the same castle. Karina ensures Sheila thinks of her as a friend, and when a spell rebuffs Karina, she manipulates Sheila into retrieving the ring for her. Uni notices Karina's evil smile and tries to warn Sheila, but Karina stops her. Karina finally reveals her evil self when she gets the ring from Sheila. Fortunately, the others arrive at the same time, and before the introductions are over, Venger appears. Venger attacks Karina, and it's revealed that the two are siblings. The kids, of course, get shocked, but there's no time to waste, and they escape the castle. As the fight goes on, the Citadel gets destroyed, and Venger is defeated. The children help Karina, who seems weak and drags herself out. She again pretends to be a good person, and the others ask her to join the group, while for some unreasonable reason, Sheila keeps quiet. Karina seeks the other ring, and the Dungeon Master appears and tells her to leave. It's then that Sheila reveals what happened. DM explains that once upon a time, Venger fought Karina and won. He then took her ring and locked her up in the magic prison. It seems that there's no place for breathing in this episode, as the scenes and events follow quickly, which makes the viewing exhausting. Although the Dungeon Master lets Karina go, he informs them that she has the other ring that must be joined to the ring the children have. The group sets out to look for Karina, while Karina, now dressed almost like Venger, sends the Orc soldiers upon the group. However, before the group can devise any plans, Sheila puts on her invisibility cloak and reaches the castle. She teases Karina and takes away the ring. As she returns to her friends, Sheila decodes how the two rings could be joined so that they could take the group back home. Well, that's not happening today, as the group hears Venger torturing Karina and Sheila goes back to save her. Upon Karina's instructions, Sheila throws the rings at Venger, which imprison him. Now set free, Karina is bewildered that Sheila saved her. Dungeon Master gives back her ring to Karina and informs her that the other ring is now Venger's prison. Before leaving, Karina and Sheila reconcile and become friends. Cave of the Fairy Dragons. This beautiful episode starts with the kids playing in the water when the Dungeon Master pays them a visit and tells them about a new way for them to get home. After he vanishes, Eric's antics wakes up a few giant red ants that attack the children. They run away from the ants when a funny little voice guides them to a cave. It turns out that the voice belongs to Amber, a little fairy dragon, who immediately develops a fascination for Presto. She even finds Presto's hat a cozy place to settle in. Amber guides the group outside the tunnel when another fairy dragon comes rushing to Amber, informing her that evil King Varen has captured their queen, Tasmira. Hank and the others decide to help Amber, and they climb a hill to reach the cave of the fairy dragons. Although the other fairy dragons get scared of the humans, Amber calls them her friends and informs the humans that the evil warlord King Varen wants their treasure. Amber shows the humans King Varen's castle, and Sheila ensures that the coast is clear so that the others can sneak in. Eric and Uni stand guard as the others enter the dungeon to find Queen Tasmira. Hank finds her locked in a prison and calls the others. Bobby tries to break Tasmira's cage with his club, but King Varen appears and tells them that his wizards made the prison. So, magical items don't have any power in the room. The guards also bring Eric and Uni to the prison, and Amber escapes just as the door closes. Hank opens the queen's cage with his bow, and Amber returns and tells everyone that she'll go seek help. However, two guards spot her and follow her into the woods. Not wanting to reveal the cave, Amber flies around in circles and gets exhausted. In the prison, Queen Tasmira asks if they're also looking for a home, which surprises the children. Tasmira tells them that the fairy dragons used to live in the forests of mists until a volcano's fire destroyed the forest. Since then, the fairy dragons have been journeying for generations to find their new home in the forests at the edge of the world, so the caves are their only temporary place. Wanting to help Queen Tasmira, Presto takes his hat out of the cell through the door window and casts a spell. The magical termites eat away the door and allow them to escape. Okay, so even Queen Tasmira knows some magic as she puts the guards to sleep as they escape. On the other hand, some of the soldiers notice the cave where Amber went. The gang comes back to the cave, and the Queen shows the gang the treasures. However, they don't want any treasures, only the way back home. Presto and Amber also bond, as Presto shows her a new trick of making stones float. They're interrupted by the soldiers attacking, and the gang stalls the soldiers temporarily, as all of them and the fairy dragons escape into the treasure room. Eric notices that the jeweled mirror in the room is actually a portal, and it shows the amusement park. Hank suggests that fairy dragons use it to go to their home. The heroes also help transfer the treasures through the portal. If you notice carefully, there's an error in the scene. When Quintal's mirror travels through the mirror, the amusement park can be seen, but not the forest. It changes in the next scene, but once the dragons have left, Eric turns the mirror and breaks it, ensuring the soldiers can't follow them. The heroes are brought to King Varron, who arrests them. Presto uses his balloon magic and levitates King Varron and his soldier as the gang escape. With one more chance to get home ruined, we're sure a day will come soon for the children to finally return home. The Winds of Darkness. The final episode starts on a dark and grim note as Bobby runs through a dark forest, looking for help. In a nearby village, the residents corner an elderly woman called Martha for bringing evil. Meanwhile, the heroes fight a mysterious and aggressive fog as a scarecrow-like ghostly person terrorizes them. However, the fog has already touched Hank, who seems to be fading away. Hank gets up to fight the monster, but vanishes as the fog engulfs him. Bobby reaches the village, but the villagers refuse to help him and hide in their homes. Martha and her pet owl give Bobby a ride, but initially refuse to help. She finally agrees when she hears about the Dungeon Master. Martha informs that the creature is Darkling, and the monster disappears as soon as he sees Martha in the scene. However, with Hank gone, Bobby and the others break down. They decide to get him back, but when Dungeon Master arrives, Eric doesn't mince his words. Martha also hides from the Dungeon Master, but later comes in front and blames him for ruining her life. As the Dungeon Master says he can't bring Hank back, the children leave with Martha. Although this was the final episode, another script was ready to conclude the series. The episode titled Requiem was finished in 2020, and writer Michael Reeves produced this fan-made episode. You can check it online, although the DVD box set also has a performance of the script in the form of a radio play. Coming back to our story, Martha stops for lunch and feeds the children. She asks them to find safety in the city of Minro, but the children are adamant about finding Hank. Martha then tells them to rest in the city for the night, and explains that the Darkling comes to the realm for 3 consecutive days every 33 years and chooses one victim each day. Since it's been doing so for 1,000 years, Sheila assumes the Darkling will soon have his 100th victim. Martha adds that when that happens, the Darkling will rule the whole realm. When they arrive outside the city, Martha leaves to find rooms to stay, but the children get surrounded by Darkling's fog. Martha comes back and saves them, but her pet goes missing. The Darkling also threatens Martha about a payback. However, Martha too seems suspicious. Martha's power of creating light and protecting the children makes the children assume she is the light bearer who can finish the Darkling. But she refuses to help and leaves the children, giving up all hope to solve the problem. However, the Dungeon Master reappears and appreciates the children's attitude. He explains that light can be found within darkness. Well, this isn't new. Martha still worries about the children and follows them secretly. The children arrive at the Darkling's place, and Eric takes up the mantle of the leader as he starts delegating tasks to his friends. It's fantastic to see Eric really step up in Hank's absence, which is the kind of character development we appreciate. The Darkling soon appears and assumes Martha has sent them. As the children get attacked, Martha appears and is willing to sacrifice herself, but the Darkling doesn't want her as the 100th victim. Presto's magic finally provides the right distraction as it consumes the deadly fog, and Martha takes the opportunity to use her powers to end the Darkling. With the Darkling gone, his victims come back and everyone is reunited. Sheila goes and hugs Hank like her life depends on him. Martha thanks the children for making her realize her own powers. Seriously? Was she hanging around for 1,000 years to find the right moment to kill the Darkling? Dungeon Master also comes back, bearing news that a great magician named Kryn can send them home. Although it's a cliffhanger that ends the show, the Dragonlance series of books based on the RPG mentions the realm as Kryn. So we can safely assume that the next quest will be the journey back home. Marvelous verdict. The phenomenal early 80s masterpiece Dungeons & Dragons has not only simplified the entire lore for beginners and enthusiasts, but also expanded the world of D&D. Now, talking about the story arcs, dialogues, and characters, there's nothing to fault, other than the fact that some plots may not suit your gameplay. However, the creative narrative has definitely hit the right buttons with pace, coloring, and essential tropes. Each episode shows the different ways magical weapons can be used to fight evil. Additionally, the character development and continuous entry of new monsters and demons keeps the entertainment bar soaring. Do let us know in the comments below what other cartoon shows you want us to cover, and also tell us about your favorite Dungeons & Dragons story arcs.